is E&P Reports, a vodcast from editor and publisher. Since 1884, the authoritative voice of news publishing. And this episode sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide understand the need to accelerate its growth now. Plus, traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way. IQ Audience Plus is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers media companies to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income now with IQ Audience Plus. Visit townnews.com EP today to learn more. And once again, hello, I'm Mike Linder, publisher of E&P. Quick housekeeping, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, please follow us, watching us on our YouTube channel. Smash the subscribe button below me, bang the bell to the right to get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P. I am honored and pleased to have the THE, Rex Huppke. Rex, welcome to the program. You and I have a lot in common. You know what it is, Rex? The one thing we have in common, sir, both of us do not have a Wikipedia page. Now, I understand me because I'm nobody, but you got 80,000 Twitter followers. So let's face it then, that's a whole new scandal, right? Wikipedia is run by the far right, who resents the hell out of you. Is that what's going on here?
Clearly, yeah. That's a good conspiracy of grand proportions, and I won't stand for it any longer.
I actually had to do research on you because normally I just go to Wikipedia and steal all that stuff, copy and paste. But yeah, you'll likely have one after this. Now, here's how you describe yourself. You're a very serious, humorish columnist. Humorish. That's a word I can't spell and I can't use in Scrabble, right? I mean,
right. No, I don't think technically, although you could try. Why not?
And hypocrisy enthusiast, woke mob co-founder, enemy of the people. Yeah. And one of my favorite things is you are considered by himself to be America's most beloved columnist. So we're honored by you're just one of the most humble people we know.
I appreciate that. Yes.
Before we get started, I'd like to talk about your background. And I have a plan. What I want to do is actually take you through your first 5 columns at USA Today, because they happened at a very critical time in our society. If you got to be, you did not see that coming, right?
No.
Suddenly you're writing. This is one of those moments similar to like the beginning, in my opinion, of World War I or World War II. We are at a very strange, very scary spot, and you're writing nationally now. But I want to first just, paint the picture. You were born down where I live, near Tampa Bay, Florida, right? So you're originally a Floridian, and you went to study what in college? What was your trade of choice?
Chemical engineering.
Oh, that's got a lot to do with journalism, right?
Sure, it was a tragic mistake, as it turns out. But who knew at the time?
So where'd you go to school? Where'd you go?
I went to Lehigh University in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania.
Okay. I'm a Philadelphia boy. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I came from a long line of chemical engineers. My grandfather was a chemical engineer. My dad was a chemical engineer. When I was a kid, my dad had future chemical engineer T-shirt made up for me to wear. So there was a hint of brainwashing, I think, in my early stages that was the path I was going to take. But I always stress this, to his credit, when the time actually came, when I was getting ready to go to college and figure out where I was going and all that. He said he wanted me to do what I want to do. I mean, he didn't put any kind of pressure on me. That was all previous T-shirts.
But by prepping you to be a chemical engineer in high school, you must probably wear a white pocket protector and never got asked at the prom. I mean, that
was the thing, is that I didn't. I was very, I was kind of a little bit of a goofball, and I loved to write. And so when I would tell people in high school, they'd be like, "What are you going to do when you go to college?" And I was like, I'm going to be a chemical engineer. And they're like, "What? You're not going to be like an English major or something like that?" So everybody was there was a disconnect from the jump almost. And obviously I didn't see it. I kind of had it in my head. My dad was kind of almost like a wild inventor sort of person. I mean, he did a lot of really cool things. And so I saw that all growing up, and I had it in my head that, okay, yeah, this is the path I want to follow. Little did I know. Right?
Little did you know the change. So then out of college, how did the journalism bug bite you? What was, just give me the quick, elevator pitch and what
Sure.
happened.
Yeah, it's a long and rich story that will appear in my in a film version, I'm sure, at some point.
Yes.
Yeah, no, not at all. Worst film ever. But I graduated. It was midway through my junior year. This is a very vivid moment. I was in the library at Lehigh studying for a thermodynamics exam, and I was in a carrel, those in libraries with a wood thing in between. So I was staring right at this wood divider, and I looked up from my book and just went, I hate this. I hate everything about this. I don't read Chemical Engineering Magazine. I don't like this. Like, I just, all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, oh my God, I've made a terrible mistake. But I didn't know what else to do. I was midway through a junior year. So I finished, I graduated, I got a job. About 3 months into that job was like, oh yeah, I definitely screwed up somewhere. Like, I was just miserable. I hated it. But I had a bunch of student loans. I was making decent money as an engineer, and I didn't know what else to do. So after about 3 years, a little weekly paper started up where I was living in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania at that time, working just across the border in Jersey. And this new weekly paper showed up at our door and looked really cool. It was all color. It was a really nice publication. And it had a full page ad that said, we're looking for writers and photographers, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And I wandered down after work one day and walked into the little newsroom and said, I don't really remember. It's all very fuzzy, but I think I said something to the effect of, I want to write stuff. And they were like, who's this guy that just wandered in off the street? But for whatever reason, they saw something and they said, okay, come in. And I started compiling, entertainment listings and just doing a lot of grunt work and that sort of thing. And then slowly they would let me start writing like some little, little brief, like entertainment briefs. And then eventually they let me do a profile of a little theater in town, and then bigger features, and it just kind of rolled from there. And I was working 8 hours a day as an engineer, and I was absolutely miserable. And then I was working 4 hours at night at the paper and loved it. So, the light switch went on. And at that point, it became just a matter of figuring out, okay, how do I get from where I am to where I want to be without going broke, basically. Right.
Yeah. So then you bounced around at a few papers, right?
No, actually, at that point, I got some very good advice from someone. I just started talking to a lot of people, in the business and just generally wise people. And somebody said, "Why don't you go back and get a master's degree? Go back to grad school." And I was like, "Well, what grad school is going to want me? I'm a chemical engineer. What journalism school is?" And they said, "You'll be surprised. Journalism schools like people with different backgrounds." And so I wound up going to the University of Missouri grad school.
Great school, yes.
And did that for 2 years. Amazing experience. Just really, I mean, it gave me exactly what I needed. It was that bridge.
Right.
I had started writing. I kind of had a little bit of an idea what I was doing, but University of Missouri gave me the knowledge and training kind of that I needed. And then after that, popped into over to Colorado Springs. I was at the Gazette there for about a year, and then over to the AP in Indiana. So, and
then from there, obviously, eventually you found yourself to the Tribune.
Yes,
and became what they considered, iconic. You built a career as a columnist, and Tribune then syndicated you. Mm-hmm. You were quoted in a blog. Okay. This is the blog when you left. It was Robert Fetter. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay. I mean, this is you're still in Chicago and you're feeling. I'm trying to paint the picture, and I have the right to do that because, it's my show and I can put words in your mouth. Right. So here you are. You say, "I'd love to say I have some grand vision for the future, or that I righteously chose to take a stand against," quote, "Alden Global Capital, the hedge fund that took over the Chicago Tribune and our other sister papers, and is known for turning journalists into unemployed journalists." So you made your comment there, but neither of those things are true. "I just have a long history of making terrible financial decisions." So that's what you told your audience when you decided to leave the Tribune after almost 20 years writing there, correct?
Yeah, 19 years.
Now you're working for USA
That's
Today.
Journalism these days, right?
That's journalism. Okay, and that's hard to not work for a hedge fund today. Okay, so now But you're working for USA Today now, and this is recent. You've only published right now. I mean, I don't know if you must have one in the hopper. One's coming out later today. But as I look at the first one was February 22nd. We're just talking, this is like the day before Putin invaded the Ukraine. Okay, and then your first column, which is amazing, you took a stab at the People's Convoy. Okay, right? You had some fun with that. What motivated you to write this? This was a very funny piece. You basically, if I may just paint the picture, you basically said, okay, we're going to start the American convoy. We're going to have them go from California to Washington and go north to the New York Times because you were convinced that Wordle, correct me if I'm wrong, was a communist plot, right?
It was rigged, yes.
It was rigged. To tell me the story behind this.
Well, yeah, I saw, obviously, like every other person on Earth at the moment, I've gotten into Wordle, and I failed to get the word. And of course, I was outraged. You have 6 tries, right, to figure out the word, and I was outraged. So I decided, inspired by much of what we've been seeing in politics in terms of denying that you lost something, and taking a firm stand against that, I decided, okay, well, clearly this is rigged. It's a conspiracy. I definitely. But
this is a total swipe at Trump, right? You were just thinking. Yes. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. I clearly got it on the first try, and anyone saying otherwise is lying, et cetera, et cetera. So I knew that the convoy, the U.S. version of the Canadian trucker convoy, was happening, just about to start. And so I said, well, I'm sure, because they are known for taking righteous stands against, things like having to wear a mask during a pandemic. It was a good time to suggest that they sweep in and protest what really matters right now, which is Wordle and the conspiracy against.
I love what you said. My first 5-letter guess on Wordle is always the same: tyranny. That's an excellent guess. Right. And then you said, but don't try to cancel me with your so-called facts. I mean, you were really just having a blast with this one issue. And I thought it was fascinating when you really were just taking a swipe at the right. I got to ask you a question. Your whole career, it seems, when I go through your writing, has been taking a swipe kind of at the right, making more of a left. Have you had death threats? Have people screamed, raved? Have you been scared? Has anything like that ever? Or you just keep, sure. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Look, I mean, I think we're at a point in terms of divisiveness where I could write a column about puppies being adorable, and cat people would be threatening to kill me. So it is a difficult time for any journalist. I mean, not just a columnist. And in fairness too, I had at the Tribune a conservative colleague who got it from the left every bit as hard as I get it from the right. But you just keep going. I mean, I mean, there's a lot of noise right now is what it boils down to. And I will say I had a couple incidences where I had to call the police just to be on the safe side. And the most terrifying, I think he meant to be very nice. So every time anything like this has happened, everybody's been fantastic. But he said, I think trying to be reassuring somehow, but he said, the ones you have to worry about aren't going to send you an email. I was like, oh, great.
That's not
well, I'm not going to sleep for the next month. Thank you. I mean, again, he was totally well-intentioned, but I was just like, oh dear. So, yeah.
We at ENP try not to take political stances, but in sense, we support the free, unfettered press. I mean, come on. That's
reasonable.
I always scream on this forum when we scream in our editorials that, some very imperfect men wrote a perfect document. This is an experiment as a society. And the press is part of that. And it has to be unfettered and it has to be free. And that's a very big problem right now as we try to define what is journalism, what is not journalism, where some countries, as you know, you have to have a license to be a journalist.
Yeah.
And now we're trying to sue Facebook and Google. But the problem with that is in a number of different ways, or tax them or at least collectively bargain with them for the content. Every time you publish an article and it gets a click on Google or Facebook, your boss doesn't get compensated. But if you wrote a song and it played on the internet, you'd be compensated. This is a big issue. But how do you define what journalism is or isn't? That's one of the the challenges. So you have people now screaming fake news and all that, and we live in that quagmire. But let me ask you this question. Do you feel that maybe it's time for a little more Aaron Sorkin in our life, where we try to look at both sides? I mean, this is what bothers me. I keep writing editorials that maybe we have to give the other side a little bit more love. I mean, maybe I'm being wrong. I mean, Joe Scarborough, whenever he goes it on Morning Joe, will start saying, okay, put away your sharp implements and put away your bag of Cheetos, but he's talking about the right. Do you feel any time at all, I hope this doesn't bother you that I'm asking this, that we have to at least acknowledge that there's some respect or anything for this other side, or is this satirical humor just simply preaching to the choir? I hope you don't mind the question.
I don't at all. No, it's a perfectly reasonable question, and it's something that I think any, especially any opinion writer, wrestles with to some degree. And then look, as journalists, I mean, we're trained to both sides things,
of
right?
Course.
I mean, like that's our, and of course, I was a reporter for years before I became a columnist. And so that's a part of me, and that's always sort of a driver. And so it's kind of it's been almost a little bit of a difficult journey, because I think what has happened is you have this sounds very cliche, I realize, you have reasonable people on both sides. And that is true. If you look at America as a whole and not at the extremely loud fringes, you have people who are reasonable and people who have the ability to,
God forbid, find a consensus in the middle.
Find some common ground. Right. And there's things they'll never agree on, and that's fine. But there are things where you can agree and you can reach some consensus. However, what we're dealing with now, and what we've been dealing with, I think, for the past 6-ish years, at least, is people who are no longer entertaining facts, and they are living in a mindset that is accepting things that are fundamentally, provably untrue. And so my question is always, what is the middle ground between me, someone who believes in facts and can look at evidence and say, okay, this is what's actually happened here, and someone who simply will not accept that? And I don't know that there's a middle ground there. I think there's absolutely a middle ground between reasonable people on both sides of the aisle, whatever your ideology. And I've talked to, of course, to many of my friends who think differently than I do. Like, there's definitely that reasonable ground. But right now we're dealing with a swath of the population that has in some ways almost been brainwashed, I think, into thinking things that simply aren't true. And the number one thing right now, obviously, is the 2020 election, and whether that was, the whole idea if it was rigged, or everything that Trump has been saying since before the election happened. And so I think it's just a lot more difficult to say to me or to anybody who embraces, real life and reality, to say, well, you need to find a middle ground with someone who thinks that, Hugo Chavez ghost had something to do with rigging the election. I mean, it's like saying, I think 2 + 2 = 4. This person thinks 2 + 2 = 6. So I should modulate my view to be 2 + 2 = 5. So, right. I mean, that makes no sense.
No, the two sides have, okay, let's look at both fringes. And we're going to get back to because you had a few more articles when I get to, but I love this conversation, because this is the real conversation, in my opinion, that may help us with the culture wars. Mm-hmm. The far right believes in lies. I will give that to you. The far left does not believe in consensus. In other words, they, if one of their leaders will move slightly to the center, suddenly they're, and so that's the challenge, and at least in my humble opinion. So we have a problem with fake news, which obviously Trump took that term and ran with it. But where my point is, there was I hear again, I'm going to bring up Sorkin, and maybe you're not a fan of his, but there was an incredible show I saw that no one ever watched called Studio 60. The perfect line in it was where the far right woman said to her boyfriend, who was far left, sometimes I don't understand the culture wars. And he said, well, your side hates my side because you think we think you're stupid, and my side hates your side because we think you're stupid. And we say it again, your side hates my side because you think we think you're stupid, and my side hates your side because we think you're stupid. In other words, are we being condescending? Is there some middle ground? Can we hold hands somewhere in the middle here and sing Kumbaya? Because all we end up doing, I think, is just fanning those flames. And it scares me a little when I watch. I mean, do you watch cable news, or can you not even go near that? I mean,
oh yeah, no, I do. Yeah.
Okay, so but you watch Left, Maddow, and that kind of stuff, correct? Or
I watch a little bit of both. I mean, I don't watch a ton of cable news, if I'm being honest. But I, when I do, I try to mix it up a little bit. I mean, I want to see. I pay attention to what's happening on Fox a lot.
So do I actually. I actually have to. I feel a need to have to see what the other. Do you think there could be a day where you sit down with someone who is the voice like you on the other side and actually have a dialogue on Fox and Friends and just try to say, look, we can respect each other's views? Or am I just some Pollyanna idiot that should just go by the wayside and assume that we're always going to have culture wars? That's.
Yes. Yeah. I think this is what I think is the problem. I mean, first of all, sure. I mean, and look, I'll put a pin in this for a second, because the one of the big problems that I think there exists right now is one of media literacy and people understanding, the differences between news and opinion and that sort of thing. But I think right now, to me, the problem is that the far right, which is often existing in a realm of, almost make believe, in terms of the things that they're buying into, is a wedge. And that wedge is making it difficult for people, not on the far, but, the sort of, middle ground left or middle ground right people. It's making it difficult for them to communicate because, I mean, I think, if we're, and this is a real hypothetical, but in an ideal world, the majority of people would sort of make it really difficult to be, fringy. Like there was a time, and what's happened, look, there was a time when a lot of the people that you show up on, as reasonable voices on Fox News, they would have been like on the corner barking, and everybody would have just been walking past them being like, oh god.
Oh, I agree.
With social media, you have handed everybody an amplifier and a platform. And I'm not saying that,
yeah, because there's advertising, but the advertising follows to back it up. I mean,
yeah. So, and I mean, I think reality,
the pillow guy's going to run commercials all over the place, and that justifies the content in some way, shape. No, I agree with you. It all started with Rush Limbaugh on AM radio. If you really want to,
yeah, right, yeah, exactly. If you want to really drive it back, I completely agree with that. So, I don't know how we get there. I mean, I have no answer to it. But what I do feel is that I want people who are being ridiculous to feel more embarrassed about being ridiculous.
Okay, that's maybe now it's starting to make sense. So you are one of the top now, what I would call satirical voices in the industry. You are having fun making us think. Am I saying that correctly or disagree? I mean,
as far as top, I have that. I'm just this guy, but I'm trying to that. Yes, I'm trying to.
Which Saturday Night Live has been a satirical voice for decades. Again, having fun to make you think. That to me is a wonderful way to use journalism. Also, you said something that I love, which is why I support this industry. I'm not making any money with the EMT. I make my money as a consultant, but I believe in this industry so much because we're one of the few industries that separates opinion from news. Mm-hmm. You're clearly doing opinion. You do not call your, I mean, if I were to assign you a news story, you'd never go back, I'm sure. I mean, you would source it, right? you would actually, you have journalistic background, you've got your master's. Sure. So I love that. But the reason I dived into this is because your satirical way of doing it is fascinating. You have so much fun with every paragraph. Okay, let's go to the next article. This is we're going to continue our journey. I don't have too much time with you because people tell me I go too long with my podcast, and the hell with them. It's my show. So here comes February 23rd, your second column now, just a few days later, and the invasion has happened, right? So here you are. How did that, first of all, make you feel? You're now in the driver's seat. Again, I know you're very self-deprecating, and I appreciate that. You have a lot of fun. No one wants to say to you, hey, you're big, but you got a huge following. I mean, USA Today are not idiots. They picked you up for a reason. You have a huge megaphone. You are now a respected satirical columnist, leans left, but trying to make everyone think, and Russia has just invaded Ukraine. What was your first thought? Because I'll go over the column. And what did you say to yourself? Did you say, holy cow, I'm moving to Panama? I mean, what did you?
I was like, so much for breaking in easy at the new gig, right?
How was your first day? I mean, it's like,
yeah, right. Yeah, well, of course, it upended everything, and for me, I mean, it was. I was a little. The Tribune's a big paper, but
it's huge.
I felt like walking into USA Today, and especially walking in this week, last week when war breaks out and everything, I did feel a little bit like the country mouse coming to the big city all of a sudden, because it was impressive to see what was happening. I mean, the resources and the talent of people around me. I mean, just on the opinion team that I'm now a part of, like that, they're getting people on the ground.
You're working for Gannett. You are now you're in the big, and did you relocate? I didn't even ask. Are you?
No, I'm still in Chicago.
Okay, go ahead. But you're working with the big guys. So not that your Tribune is small, excuse me. I take that.
No, I'm not saying that, but it just, it's USA Today is focused on.
All right. So here it is, February 23rd.
National news. So.
You decide you're going to keep your job now, not quit and go, grow wine, and you're going to stay and you're going to keep your megaphone. Maybe you signed a contract and you had to. I haven't, between you and you got to understand, on February 23rd, and I'm going to paint the timeline. We all hadn't united yet. CPAC's going on 5 miles from my house in Orlando down here, right? And there are actually people down in Orlando screaming Putin, Putin, Putin. And at this time, correct me if I'm wrong, Fox News was still doing some stuff in the evening saying, well, maybe Putin's okay. Maybe it's okay. So you take a real satirical look at this. You go, flagrant violation of international law, President Joe Putin. And then you start having fun with the whole idea that Marjorie Taylor Greene actually was making speeches that were pro-Putin. I mean, did you feel a need to basically point out this, I guess, hypocrisy? Because now it's hypocrisy. We can look back on it now and go, oh my God, they'd eat those words then, right?
Yeah, the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, I was, I mean.
You mad? I want to know, were you mad?
Yeah, I was mad. I mean, it was ridiculous. And I didn't want that to get sort of, the news in Ukraine is primary. I mean, right. Of course. I mean, it is appalling and frightening and all of the things. But when I saw that thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking at a white nationalist conference, I was like, this is going to get plowed under and nobody's going to notice. And I'm like, people have to notice these things. Like, that is not a small thing. I mean, the guy that introduced her is a flat out anti-Semite. He is a flat out white nationalist. And she's there like, well, I want to talk to these young disaffected.
And she denied any knowledge that she knew who he was.
These are the kind of things these are the kind of things that I'm talking about. I'm like, look, I approach it from a satirical standpoint a lot of the time. Although, I also write seriously when I feel like I need to. But this is serious, right? I mean, she's not, and people are like, oh, just ignore her. I'm like, no, look, she's one of the GOP's top fundraisers right now.
She is.
I mean, she is you dismiss people like that at your own peril, right? But she is not just some random person or something like that. I mean, she's a person that has a voice right now that people are paying attention to. Trump, the next day at CPAC, praised her, and again, people are like, well, just ignore Trump. Trump is the front runner for the GOP nomination right now. There's no way around that. So how do you ignore that? Right? I mean,
well, that's why their butts are these center Republicans, that they still exist. Their butts are hurting so much trying to sit on a fence and don't know which way to lean, because they're trying to. No, I'm on your side with this one. This was a flagrant. And then I watched Vinnick go on one of the cable channel. Remember him, right? The gentleman who was fired from his military job because he spoke up against Trump, and he basically said they're going to have to eat those words. His prediction on that day is he said, "You don't get it. there is going to be a horrible situation here. People are going to be dying in the streets. And suddenly now, okay, so let's move on to the next one. I loved February 20. I read it twice because you featured Ava Felice, a 16-year-old girl. What a way to go, my friend. I mean, you decided rather than take this, okay, let's all raise the flag, because by February 26th, Trump was in the background. Everybody just ignored him. Okay, so maybe he called Putin smart. We don't remember that anymore. Maybe they were screaming Putin, Putin. Now we all agree the man's an idiot. And which is hilarious, by February 26th, I just want to give you insight on this timeline. This is an amazing chance to chat with you on only 1 week of American history that they will be studying for decades and not centuries to come. And you're writing. On February 26th, we were getting united. You understand? I mean, by this point now, it wasn't a war against Russia. It was a war against Putin. Right? We know even the networks, even Fox. I had Fox on just to watch. Nothing negative about the president. It was hard to find. The only thing they could say about Biden was he should have done it quicker. I mean, they were just like,
yeah, right.
So everybody's eating their words. And you could have started raising the flag like 9/11-ish back then, but you took the voice of Ava Felice. Tell us that story. The 60. Where did you find the email from this Vineland, New Jersey girl? And it was a touching article. So give me the background on that one. The email was sent, and I give her so much credit. This shows you how savvy she is. And but 16-year-old New Jersey high schooler. She had taken a picture during one of her classes on, I think it was on a Thursday. I'm sorry, I may have that date wrong, but she went into a class and they had the TV showing Biden's presser about Ukraine. And there was like a semicircle of her and her friends watching it, very, obviously very engaged. And so she sent an email that was basically saying, this impacts us. We're paying attention. Don't underestimate us, the young people and in the country. And it was a very earnest, very well written and really sweet note. And she sent it to the editorial board at USA Today. And she also had sent the same email, I think, to other news organizations. So my editor had passed it on and just, in case it sparked something or whatever. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, well, I immediately thought of the Dr. Seuss Horton Hears a Who, where the little faint voice kind of going, we're here. And so it really struck me. So I reached out to her and her mom, of course, got her mom on the phone to make sure to explain, I'm with USA Today. Obviously, I'd like to write something. I think this is she makes a really powerful point. And anyway, and her mom was super nice. Actually, her mom was said she was, had been with law enforcement. So they had completely scrubbed me before they got on the phone. Oh, you're kidding. That's
I thought it was good. I'm like, that's what I would have done too. I would have.
Who is this guy, a predator?
Yeah, right. Exactly. I was like, good for you. Thank God. Yeah. If somebody ever wanted to talk to my kid, man, I'd know.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Google anyway,
and you don't even have a Wikipedia page, so that most probably.
Yeah, right. They had to actually dig. But anyway, mom was super nice, and then put me on the phone with Ava, and we talked for a while, and it just kind of clicked with me, and my own kids too. We've been focused on this whole thing, right? And we're focused on, we're worrying about who's praising Putin, who's not, and of course what this means, and and a lot of us who grew up, like in the Cold War era and stuff, are sort of like,
right?
Do we start crawling under our desks again? And so I just thought this is a tiny but strong voice, and we ought to be listening to this, right? I mean, all of us, we should just remember, as we're sucking in all this horrible information, that there are kids of varying ages and varying understandings and maturity levels and everything paying attention, and they do care. And also, not for nothing, but they all have the world at their fingertips, and so any thought that they're going to be sheltered from it is absurd. So I mean, it was one of those things where I wanted to get out of the way and let her speak, because my voice, who cares what I say, but her voice was what mattered there. And so it was just a chance. And so between, quoting her email that she sent, and then some of the really bright and interesting comments she made, and when I interviewed her, I just thought it was an important.
Well, may I quote her? Because I have it right here. Because it was so touching. School shootings and the pandemic, and now this. We've got teenagers trying to strike a balance between fearing the present and settling on a future that can often look bleak. Those words alone,
right,
make you
heavy.
Well, you forget that's our mission in life. Again, I'm sorry if I'm a Pollyanna individual, but our mission in life is to leave the world better for our next generation,
yes.
which we're not doing a great job of right
now.
No, sorry,
not at all.
I mean, you hear a voice like that, it should all make it. I hate to use an old expression from Charles Schultz. It should make a sober man pause and stop all the rhetoric and maybe try to find some balance in this incredibly weird world to help this poor girl who's she's basically cried for help, but she did it the right way. She sent something to USA Today.
It was smart.
It was very smart. God, and I love the fact that you included a picture of her too. She's the future. She actually made me feel good about the future, that there are people like that coming up. Okay. Yeah. So the last one I read, and I'm sure you have another one in the hopper, and by the time we edit this and broadcast it, there will be another one out. But the last one I got was March 1st. Okay. Love this. You did a preamble to the State of the Union. You basically took a complete satirical thing and you said, my advice draws on 4 years of watching President Trump deliver a State of the Union address, experience that I yelled so loudly I broke things and slapped myself unconscious. If you're a Republican preparing to watch President Joe Biden, you gave them directions. 1, make sure you boo when Biden's introduced. 2, make sure you boo when Biden gets behind the podium and he opens his mouth. 3, clapping is strictly prohibited. 4, don't look at House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. 5, forget all the specifics of events that occurred for the last, 5 years, and don't be fooled by positive facts. This was a complete slap at what you thought was, okay, I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm allowed to, I think, the hypocrisy of the staged event, right? I mean, so you set us up for this in a way that before the speech itself. So my question would be, here you were, when you watched the speech, what did you think?
Well, there was actually more unity than I had predicted.
Same here.
Yeah, and I was impressed with that and thankful, frankly. I mean,
I wanted to immediately call that 16-year-old girl and say, see, we're getting somewhere, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, I think, the Russia's invasion of Ukraine is uniting, and I think that those inclined to want to sort of smack Biden a little bit more recognize that. I mean, I think, you did have cooler heads kind of prevailing there and seeing like we do look, I mean, we may be a divided mess right now, but we got to come together on this one because this is serious business. And you're talking about, and at that point you had started to see just the destruction and the, wanton, killing of innocent people in Ukraine. And so, and that was a big chunk of the speech, right? I mean, that, which as it should have been, right? So, I mean, I can't imagine what the speechwriters were going through the past week or so before they had to do that, because they had to completely redo the whole thing.
I don't think any of them slept for an entire
day. Right. Yeah, that's not what you want to have to all of a sudden rewrite on the fly. But I thought they did a good job, and I thought he personally, and I'm, my own views and everything, but I thought he did a good job of delivering that and made, hitting the right notes that made it difficult for people to just reflexively go after him. I mean, really, the only outrageous thing you saw happen in that was Lauren Baber,
the screaming from the audience.
Yeah, screaming something while he's talking
13,
about veterans
13,
and his son dying. But again, I mean, that's just garbage. I mean, that's the side that I view as truly fundamentally problematic. I mean, if you could kind of excise that out of the Republican Party, we would be on more reasonable ground. And I'm not saying there are not people on the left that need to be, but I'm just saying that right now that sort of complete abandonment of any sense of like decency. It's trolling. It's just, she did it because it's going to get her a ton of attention on Twitter, And, it's going to make, it's like, I don't know if you saw Ron DeSantis yesterday.
I did.
Getting in the face of a bunch of teens who were there at his press conference as props, basically, and telling them to take their masks off and stop with the COVID theater. And, I'm just like, that's obnoxious. All right. I mean, you're just being a bully, and you're modeling bullying behavior for other people, which has consequences for kids. So that sort of thing, that's the stuff that really bugs me. And that's the stuff that I think needs to get called out, because it's just not necessary. Like, that accomplishes nothing except ginning up, people who, for whatever reason, have become kind of addicted to a little bit of cruelty and that sort of thing. And that's what bugs me. So
it's in the playbook. It's been there for centuries that if you wanted to become a dictator, you have to first find somebody to point a finger at and say, these are the people to hate. And it's just become so out of control that this is why I hope you didn't mind the journey I took you on today, because
no.
I just, for some reason, it came to me as I started exploring your columns and then explored when you started this new job. The timing was amazing. I have to ask, is there one in the hopper already written? And what are we about to see coming out in USA Today? Are you still working on it? Is it in your brain, or has it already come out of your word processor?
I have a piece that I'm working on about the Texas order targeting the families of transgender children.
Oh, okay.
To investigate them for child abuse if their kids are getting gender affirming care, which is outrageous. This will not be funny. And again, I do turn the switch. My default is satirical, joking around approaches, but I not always. There are times when I kind of get on my soapbox. I guess a bit more, and this is one of them. So I'm doing an interview later this morning, and that piece should be out later today, just about what I think is just the abject cruelty of targeting trans kids and their families for no particular reason.
Rex, I first of all, my apologies that your parents abused you by naming you after a dog.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I read that too. I mean, I'm bringing it home now, but I got to tell you, you said that because your first name was Rex, you were banged into, you were beat up in high school. Or I have to take homage with that. I met a gentleman once when I was doing a workshop in Texas whose name really was Benjamin Dover. So you might as well just name him, please throw my head into the locker 16 times.
Great.
I mean, but for those who don't know, Rex was named after, whose dog was it? Yours or your parents or what? You were named after Rex the dog? Or was
no, they wasn't actually named after a dog. My dad just liked the name Rex. He thought it sounded
okay.
And my mom thought so too. And my dad had some other name ideas that were just ridiculous. So I think my mom was like, okay, we'll go with that one because it's the least bad.
Rex Huppke, I got to tell you, you do not like to be complimented. I can tell already. You're very self-deprecating, which is one of the best places to find humor, in my humble opinion. You have a brilliant mind. You're writing some really great stuff. And as an industry, please keep it up. I mean, just make people think. Even if you were writing for the right this way, it's great that you're making people think. And you're doing it in a wonderful, wonderful way. I think anybody who wants to bend a mind or make people think should have a little humor, so people will pay attention to you. And
thank you. I really, that's incredibly kind. And I think it's an effective way to get at people, especially when the world's as weird as it is now. And being lucky enough to be with USA Today now and having a whole different audience and a much larger audience to kind of get introduced to and everything. It's exciting, and I'm just really looking forward to hopefully making, like you said, making people think. I mean, and hopefully doing something good, making people laugh. Some people will get annoyed, and that's part of
what it's all about too.
Yeah, right. But I feel very lucky to be heading off on this new journey. It's exciting.
I once had a publisher in this forum from a very small market who said, if I'm standing in line at a McDonald's and the guy in front of me hates me and the guy behind me loves me, I'm doing my job. But if they both don't know me, I'm failing at my job. But I always like to, like to say the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference.
Yeah,
So
yeah, right. Yeah, if you're a columnist and everybody likes you or everybody hates you,
you got a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we do appreciate you at E&P. We're definitely going to follow the story. And I want to also thank you and your handlers, your people, whatever your bosses. You better get one of your people. I know you have a publicist now that you're such big news, and you must probably have a manservant or a woman servant or a body person, whatever they are. So please have that person contact Wikipedia today. Get your page up. Damn it. Come on. Where's your team? Get them on top of that. Where's your publicist?
Actually, what I've always been expecting is that somebody who doesn't like me is going to do a Wikipedia and just fillet me, just be like, this dummy from Chicago thinks he, which, honestly, I'd kind of like that, I guess.
Oh, there you go. And I also really want to thank the folks, in all seriousness, of USA Today to allow us to have the first interview with you. That, to me, is extremely special since this incredible new job you've got. Rex, stay healthy, stay well, and stay at that damn typewriter, okay?
I will do that. Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you.